In the 1970s, few television faces were as familiar as Demond Wilson's. Week after week, millions of viewers invited him into their living rooms, laughing along as Lamont Sanford, the steady and sharp-witted son balancing the chaos of his father's world. Fame arrived quickly, and with it came recognition that most actors only dream of. At the height of network television's golden era, Wilson was part of a cultural phenomenon that transcended entertainment. Yet behind the laughter and applause, his journey was quietly taking a different shape. While the industry celebrated ratings and celebrity, Wilson was beginning to ask deeper questions about purpose and fulfillment. His life would ultimately become a rare example of someone who experienced immense fame, stepped away from it voluntarily, and chose a path guided not by applause, but by personal conviction and inner peace. The role that defined a generation, Demond Wilson was only 26 years old when he landed the role of Lamont Sanford on Sanford and Son in 1972. Acting opposite Red Fox, a seasoned and commanding comedic force, was no small challenge, yet Wilson held his ground with ease. The chemistry between the two actors became the backbone of the show, creating a father-son dynamic that felt both exaggerated and deeply relatable. Fred Sanford's schemes and theatrics were perfectly grounded by Lamont's patience, intelligence, and quiet humor. The show quickly became more than just a sitcom. It reflected working-class struggles, generational clashes, and family loyalty through comedy. At its peak, Sanford and Son ranked among the most-watched programs in America, drawing tens of millions of viewers each week. Wilson wasn't just acting in a hit show, he was helping define an era of television history. Life after a television phenomenon. When Sanford and Son concluded in 1977, Demond Wilson did not disappear overnight. He continued working steadily, proving that he was more than a single character. He starred in Baby, I'm Back, explored new comedic territory in The New Odd Couple, and later took on film roles that showed his range and adaptability. From the outside, his career appeared to be evolving naturally, following the path of a successful television actor expanding into broader opportunities. But internally, something was shifting. Despite professional success, Wilson began to feel a growing disconnect between fame and fulfillment. The industry's pace, pressures, and expectations weighed heavily on him. While audiences still saw confidence and charisma, Wilson was quietly wrestling with questions that had nothing to do with ratings or roles. The applause was loud, but it wasn't answering what he felt was missing inside. A spiritual turning point. Sometime in the late 1970s and early 1980s, Demond Wilson experienced a profound spiritual awakening that would alter the course of his life. What began as personal reflection grew into a deep commitment to faith and service. He became an ordained minister and devoted himself to spiritual teaching, counseling, and writing. This was not a superficial shift or a temporary phase. Wilson spoke openly about how fame had left him feeling unfulfilled, even hollow, despite its rewards. He described success without purpose as a fragile thing, impressive on the outside but empty at its core. Faith gave him clarity, grounding him in values that felt more enduring than celebrity. Rather than rejecting his past, Wilson reframed it, seeing his platform as something that could be used differently, more meaningfully, even if it meant stepping away from Hollywood's spotlight. Walking away when others wouldn't. One of the most remarkable aspects of Demond Wilson's story is that he chose to step back when he still had opportunities ahead of him. He turned down roles and projects that conflicted with his values, a decision few actors are willing or able to make. For nearly 2 decades, Wilson lived largely outside the entertainment industry, focusing on ministry, family, and personal growth. To Hollywood, this looked like disappearance. To Wilson, it felt like freedom. He wasn't concerned with staying relevant or visible. He believed that peace mattered more than presence. During these years, he wrote books, preached, and spoke candidly about the dangers of chasing fame without purpose. His absence wasn't rooted in bitterness or failure, but in a conscious choice to live authentically. In an industry defined by constant reinvention, Wilson chose stillness, and he never apologized for it. A quiet return on his own terms. After many years away from the camera, Demond Wilson made a modest return to acting in 2023 with the drama Eleanor's Bench. It was not a blockbuster comeback or a bid for renewed fame. Instead, it was a project that resonated with him personally. His return felt reflective rather than nostalgic, as though he was closing a chapter rather than reopening one. The performance carried the weight of lived experience. Shaped by years away from the spotlight, Wilson did not return as someone chasing relevance, but as someone complete in himself. For longtime fans, it was a reminder of his talent. For Wilson, it was simply one more expression of a life lived with intention. He had nothing left to prove. Acting had become, once again, a choice rather than an obligation, and that distinction made all the difference. The man beyond the character. While Demond Wilson will always be remembered as Lamont Sanford, those who knew his later life understood that the role was only one chapter of a much larger story. He was also a minister who offered guidance, an author who explored faith and morality, and a father who valued presence over prestige. His life serves as a counter-narrative to the idea that success must be loud or constant to be meaningful. Wilson demonstrated that walking away from the spotlight does not erase achievement. Instead, it can redefine it. His story resonates because it is rare. He showed that it is possible to leave fame without resentment and return without ego. He did not reject Hollywood out of anger, but out of clarity. And in doing so, he modeled a different kind of strength, one rooted in conviction rather than visibility. A legacy that extends beyond fame. Demond Wilson's passing at the age of 79 marks the end of a life that touched people in more ways than one. To fans, he was a beloved television figure whose work continues to entertain new generations. To his family, he was a father whose values shaped their lives. To those he guided spiritually, he was a source of wisdom and compassion. His legacy is not confined to reruns or awards. It lives in the example he set by choosing meaning over momentum. In a culture obsessed with staying seen, Wilson reminded us that stepping away can be just as powerful. He proved that fame is a chapter, not a definition. And while his face may forever be associated with laughter, his life tells a deeper story about courage, faith, and the freedom to walk your own path, even when the world expects you to stay.